base is dropped, eventually, on a new edition of Soccer Down here. Yeah, right as I am starting my prep this morning, I got Jarrett Smith's article posted on the website with his 50 bazillion gifs of madness between Atlanta United and San Jose. Took a little bit longer than I was planning on. Get that done. I blame Jarrett Smith, and I blame the San Jose Earthquakes for my power then going out. It took out the whole area, like the whole complex was out. And then they said it'd be back at 9. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, it'll be all right. Then at 9, it's like, oh, we're reevaluating. Then they say it's going to be 11. Then it just magically appears.
Reevaluating. That's a
reevaluating is not what you want to hear from your power company. Like, yeah, we're reevaluating. It might be back. We don't know. I blame San Jose. I blame Kofi Sarkodie for his absurd tackle on Yamil Azad in 2017. Absolute mejores patatas material. And I blame Jarrett Smith. And Georgia Power. But they got it fixed. We're live. We're only about 40 minutes late. Mike Conti will be joining us here in about 15 minutes or so. We did have to push back. Tom Robinson of World Football Index was going to join us at 9:30. We're going to catch up with Tom on Tuesday. We would have talked about River Plate dominating in the Supercopa Argentina last night. We'll save that. Didn't get to see it. It actually wasn't available in the United States. It was one of the rare games out of Argentina that was contractually obligated elsewhere from Fanatis and other places. So River dominated. Marcelo Gallardo went from that game last night, flew back into Buenos Aires, and was at the reserve game this morning for River, showing his dedication to the craft with a mate in hand. We're trying to be dedicated to the craft. We got a lot of different things to talk about. We've got IFAB and handball situations that we got to dig into. We got the Madrid derby to dig into. We've got Tommy Tuchel for school, beating Liverpool, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. And we've got this Inter Miami nonsense to talk about. They're in trouble. We got the U.S. Open Cup stuff to talk about. 3 games might determine who qualifies. That's not unprecedented. It's actually happened before. I don't know if it was 3 games. It might have been 4, but they did that back in the day. Not just in MLS. They did it in the lower divisions too. All kinds of craziness. That's what a Friday is all about on a Freestyle Friday. So we're going to talk mostly MLS at 10 with Mike Conti. So we're going to save the MLS stuff, including the Miami stuff, for that. Let's start with yesterday and the Chelsea-Liverpool game. And I guess I should start saying sorry to the Liverpool fans like Nathan Pugh and others because, man, y'all got some problems.
Woo.
And I'm going to say one of the problems is on Jurgen Klopp in a big way because this has been going on for a while, right? This whole issue with the defensive injuries, with having to throw people around. You're not pressing as high as you used to, but you're still playing the high line that you have been playing. And there was a great graphic this morning that I was able to see right before my power went out. Maybe I should blame Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool's defense. I don't know. About how teams have been hurt by space in behind their back line. Not just that they play a high line, because a lot of teams play a high line, but that they've been damaged by playing the high line. If you play a high line and you don't press high, you're dead. Period. We saw it play out yesterday with Mo Salah. Mo Salah was being yelled at to do more. He didn't. He got subbed. He got sulky about it. And, well, that's why it's not working. You're getting crushed with this high line if you're Liverpool. So if you're not going to be able to do the other part of it, you can't play as high of a line. And the fact that they haven't adjusted, because I get that you want to play through it. I get that you want to solve it. I get that you want to fix it. I understand that. But if the pressure is not there, and, hey, they're fat and happy, not literally fat, but in the context of what that means. Maybe they don't want to press as much. Maybe they're happy with their league title from last year. Maybe they're happy with the Champions League title. Maybe it's been a hard season and they don't have it in them to give you that wild pressing style that Jurgen Klopp wants. Well, if it's not there, he's got to adjust. Because by being stubborn and playing this high line, knowing he can't get the pressure up high that he wants, he's going to cost them Champions League next year. And that's going to cost them dollars. And that's going to be a huge issue. Chelsea goes in and does what Chelsea's been doing under Thomas Tuchel. They're not losing. They're winning a lot of games. They're drawing some. They're very good defensively. And anybody who questioned, well, man, they're really not giving Frank Lampard enough time here. Man, maybe Frank's going to get it right. Maybe he would have, but Thomas Tuchel has come in and shown you why he is a great manager. Now, he's got to continue to manage the relationships. We know that becomes an issue for him at times. We'll see when that happens. But right now, Chelsea, out of nowhere a month or two ago, is now in a Champions League position, and Liverpool does not look like they're going back to the Champions League next year.
7 wins, 3 draws in Tuchel's first 10 matches at Chelsea. And to add to the woes that we've seen and heard about at the back line, apparently, according to Nico Cantor, Ozan Kabak got a bit of a knock yesterday as well. So he might be on the injury list, added to everyone else who's on the injury list, short of Jamie Carragher and Gary Lineker, who might be on the injured list for Liverpool. So another injury possibility for Liverpool at the back.
Gary Lineker ain't playing in the back, and I don't think he'd ever play for Liverpool anyway. I think he'd say no to that potential transfer. Jamie Carragher, they might have to call him back in. They might have to call anybody back in at this point, but it doesn't matter because now you're getting to a stage where, okay, we know those injuries are a problem. The injuries in the back are not affecting the issues up high. That's what has to be understood here. Because this high line getting damaged and getting broken and the goals happening from it are as much to do with the lack of pressure up high. And there's been a conversation in the Twitch pitch, which is great. That's what we're here for, about the engine room in the midfield. It's not even the midfield. It's the front three. And they've been outstanding. But if they can't press in the same way, you can't play a high line, period. It's that simple. Go back to it if you're an Atlanta United fan, to the decisions Frank de Boer made when they were not pressing high. And I don't know if that was he didn't feel like he could get his team to do that, or he worried about the pace in the back or whatever. But he didn't press up high, and he dropped his line deeper. If you're not going to press up high, you can't play a high line defensively. It's just that simple. Like, there's no way to make that work of, okay, yeah, we're not going to press up high, but we're going to play the high line defensively, because you're giving the other team's defense the opportunity to sit there and buy lottery tickets, chipping a ball in to see if they can catch you. If you don't press them, they're going to try it. And 1 out of 4 or 5 times, maybe 6, they're going to hit on it. If you don't put pressure on them, maybe they don't chip it through. Maybe they do hit that line-splitting pass and send somebody in. That's why high line, got to pressure, because you're conceding the space. It's just that simple. There's no way around it. It's just that simple. So if you don't do it, you don't do it. I think we have Carlitos Tevez in the Twitch pitch this morning. Very, very cool. Welcome, Carlitos. Hope all is well.
Welcome.
It's craziness with Liverpool. I think now we're getting into a really weird, stubborn phase of trying to do the same things when you don't have the same materials to work with. And it's not about people and injuries only. It's about mentality. If they can't change the mentality, then he's got to drop a deeper line. He's got to figure that out. Maybe he should have done it with the injuries to begin with to protect a little bit more. But Jurgen Klopp's got to adjust, because just throwing your hands up and saying, we can't do it right now, that's not good enough, because it is a results-driven business, and dollars will be lost from that. I mean, let's look at the table in the Premier League, and we'll look at what's coming up this weekend. Right now, Manchester City, forget it. They got the title, 65 points. Second, Manchester United, 51. Leicester, 50. Chelsea, final Champions League spot, 47. Everton, game in hand, 46. West Ham, game in hand, 45. Liverpool, 43. Tottenham, game in hand, 42. 5 points out with that game in hand of 4th place. Aston Villa, 2 games in hand, and they are 8 points back from Chelsea. So they are absolutely in the mix. Arsenal, 10 points back, game in hand. I'm going to push them out. So I think it goes down to 9 for the final 4th spot. Liverpool is in the midst of it, where maybe even Europa is not an easy thing at this point. So coming up this weekend, Burnley hosts Arsenal, Sheffield United hosts Southampton, Aston Villa hosts Wolves, Brighton hosts Leicester, West Brom hosting Newcastle. Oh boy, that's a fun one. Wow. Liverpool hosting Fulham, Manchester City.
It's the early game.
Manchester City hosting Manchester United, Tottenham hosting Palace. Then on Monday, Chelsea hosting Everton, West Ham hosting Leeds. I'm not going to ask you the easy one, the Manchester Derby. What is the other game you are looking forward to watching, since you are the European snob here, and especially the English snob?
Thank you. Probably the 3:00 game on Saturday, Brighton and Leicester, for various reasons. Brighton, because they're hovering over the relegation battle and can be drawn back into it if things continue to go a certain way that they don't want. And Leicester, with all of their issues right now, injuries, and where they are in the top 4 discussion, trying to get into European football. So it would be that one for me is one that I'm looking at as keeping my eye as the Euro snob on the show.
Specifically the English snob. I think we have to clarify. Yeah, I mean, yes, you're a Euro snob, but you're especially an English snob. Did you have your breakfast tea this morning?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No, quite. Have my Diet Dr. Pepper, which would be gravitating toward the Mountain Dew at some point. Yes, quite.
Your accents are very, very interesting in where they come from. It's fascinating to me because they're different quite. Every time.
Yes, quite.
Yeah,
rather Higgins-like from Magnum PI. So it's a John Hillerman kind of Higgins accent.
Whatever works.
Magnum.
Whatever works. Let's get into another derby, because we have the Manchester derby this weekend, although it's not quite as meaningful. There's a much more meaningful one going on in Spain, because it is 1 versus 3, and they're not separated by double digits in points. They're separated by 5 points, although, number 1, Atleti has a game in hand on Real Madrid. Barcelona is also in second on 53 points alongside Real Madrid. They've got the better goal differential. This is huge for these two teams. This is huge for Spanish football. This will be on Sunday at 10:15. You can watch it on beIN Sports. You can watch it on Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. There's a lot of conversation about how you are dreamy from the faction crew who is hanging out this morning. What's
I'm
up?
dreamy?
You're dreamy, yes. Well, I mean, you do brand yourself as the cute sports guy, so, I mean, you're kind of bringing it on yourself.
Well, the boss has branded me as the cute sports guy, and so what she says goes.
So she controls what your name is on social media.
And I agree to it. Happy wife, happy life.
I think you need to learn a few things about branding, John. But anyway, Atleti and Real Madrid. Atleti was smoking a powerhouse early. Looked like they were going to put La Liga away. Not so much. They have bounced back. They did get a win at Villarreal 2-0 in their last time out. Real Madrid was smoking in a different direction because of injuries, and they were skidding around, but they were finding ways to win after losing 3 of 4 in all competitions. A 2-1 at Huesca, a 2-0 over Getafe, a 2-0 over Valencia, a 1-0 at Valladolid, a 1-0 at Atalanta. They did get some help from a red card that was questionable. And a draw against Real Sociedad where maybe they come back to earth after 5 wins in a row. How do you think this one goes?
Well, I can't change my pick for soccer over there. So
you want to change your pick, is what you're saying?
No, I don't. But apparently the juice boxers have changed their minds.
Well, what did everybody pick on soccer over there? First off,
all right. First off, Jarrett picked Atleti.
Mm-hmm.
You and I picked a draw, and Nick picked Real Madrid.
Okay.
And it started out with Atleti at a plus 184, Real at plus 160. Those have flipped. So Atleti is now at a plus 164 in the composite over at Odds Portal, and Real Madrid is at plus 184. Your draws pretty much stayed the same.
I'm guessing the lingering effects of that Madrid Real Sociedad result are starting to catch up on the juice boxes. I don't know the juice boxers ragamuffin. That's a whole different conversation. That sounds a little weird, like something you might watch on YouTube. It's kind of strange. You might want to make sure that's blocked just to be safe. Real Madrid's missing Benzema. They're missing Ramos, although Sergio Ramos might be back sooner than we thought. They're missing Diaz. They're missing Carvajal. Doubtford with Hazard. Doubtful with Marcelo. Atleti's pretty much at full strength. I went draw because I think Atleti doesn't have to get the win here, and they are going to be careful to not lose it.
Yeah.
That fits Diego Simeone's style. Could they win? Absolutely. Should they win? Yeah, I think so. But he's going to be very careful to not risk losing it, because then that throws the title race even more wide open. If he gets a draw here, he's fine. He's got that game in hand. He's got 5 points.
Yeah.
That's potentially 8 points. He's good. He doesn't need to risk it, and he's got guys like Luis Suarez. You give him half a chance, he can find a goal. They're going to be safe, and they're going to try to draw Real Madrid out. Now, they could hurt him. They absolutely could, but I'm thinking they cancel each other out. I'm thinking draw. It might not be exciting in terms of style of play, but it might be exciting in terms of fireworks because of the intensity of the match. Real Madrid really, really needs it, and Atleti really, really needs to not lose it.
Yeah, I'm thinking something along the lines of 1-1. I think that you're going to get the excitement in between the goals, but I don't think that you're going to get a whole lot of goals scored. I think it's a 1-1 final.
All right, you're not properly warmed up for this, but it is the top of the hour, and we're going to try
That's
to
true.
stay on some sort of a semblance of normalcy here. So,
True.
John, you are going to tell us about our good friend in Decatur, GA, Steve Apolinsky, right now.
Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network for wrongful death and serious injury matters. Knowledgeable, compassionate, successful trial lawyers can be found at Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. And if you need to have your questions answered for wrongful death or serious injury matters, a couple different ways that you can have your questions answered. You can get a free consultation by giving them a call at 404-377-9191, or you can shoot Steve an email directly, steve at aa-legal.com. Or the third way is that you can go on the World Wide Web. In the address bar, type in aa-legal.com. Hit the enter key, the return key, the arrow key, whatever advances you to the homepage at Apolinsky & Associates, LLC. You get an introduction to the firm. You get an introduction to their cases. They even have a blog you can read if you feel so compelled. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. Apolinsky & Associates, LLC. You can get your free consultations. You have your pop-up windows as well on the website at aa-legal.com, 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison. They've got a bunch of different accolades across the board. Lifetime multi-million dollar member of the Advocates Forum. They're also on the American Board of Trial Advocates, Atlanta Magazine, Super Lawyers, Top 100 Trial Lawyers in the National Trial Lawyers Review. So if you have a wrongful death or serious injury matter, you can go to one place. It's Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, and the website is aa-legal.com.
Wow.
Yes.
That was something. I don't know what, but that was something. I'm going to read real quick before Mateo dials up Mike. This is going to be long. TikTok. I like the humanization of the lawyers. -1 for the finger wag. PD wants to do a charity fundraiser to raffle to give a listener a chance to read the ad live on the show with the full grading treatment. That might work.
That'd be great.
I like the mention of the blog, +2 for those, -1 for a stumble. Oops, a few flubs. Great read, too long, and it was very long. That was by far the longest, not even close.
Really?
Yeah, not even close. 7.5. Let's see. KFC, I agree with the boss, but the final pause, ... And in Roman numerals, a 7 out of 10. Jahuta, wonderful. Makes me want to commit a crime just so I need legal representation. I like it. Trial lawyers is hard to say. It was hard to say. I did notice that. Thomas Jewin likes the changes. Domer, wow, I could hear those exclamations from the turlet. J-Dub, -1. Blog Talk, nobody reads legal blogs. Man, all the off-script, -1. I mean, it's Friday, though, so 7.7. 7.5. Decent energy, +3 on the sale job, 8.2. 4 cards, very sad because he missed the read. Alex Pacine said, this morning's events have weakened my resolve to unconditionally support John's read. He said he supported it because it keeps the lights on at SDH. Unfortunately, there were other things at play, and I blame
external
some guy
factors.
For yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry, Alex.
A 6. It is definitely a Freestyle Friday. 6. 7. Feeling generous. Don't tell him he doesn't deserve it, though. Oops. Sorry, Nix.
Oops.
7.4. Made it just in time. 7. Just because it's Friday and I don't want to hammer John. 5. Just because I missed it from 4 card. 4 card has no high hopes for your reading skills. He gave you a 5 as just a default.
Just a blind 5.
Yep. 9.1, 8.55. Like the new content. Little stumbles, though. Appreciate the changes. Good effort. Enunciation at times a bit over the top. I blame the weird accent from earlier. Prefer higher speed. 7.99. Drop some of the old ad-libs and make way for the new ones. That's what we will end with as we try to get Mike Conti on the line. We got Miami stuff to talk about. Mm-hmm. They are trying to bend the rules, we are learning. Trying to bend them when it came to Blaise Matuidi. All of us were shocked that Blaise Matuidi was not a designated player signing.
I say.
No, we were shocked because everybody thought he would be a designated player signing. But somehow Blaise Matuidi was not a designated player signing, and maybe, Mike, that is a little bit of a flubbing of the rules. Or flouting of the rules might be a better way to put it.
Let's let the investigation play out. I mean, I don't want to jump to conclusions, and I don't think anyone else should either. I mean, let's let the investigation play out, but if the league is publicly saying they're investigating, they probably have probable cause that something went very, very wrong.
I don't remember the league in its now 26th season ever issuing a statement that they were exploring the signing of a player on a roster rules and regulations track. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, and, again, I don't want to pile on, but there was a lot of shadiness in, August or September, when they were able to get Gonzalo Higuain over and into a match against Philadelphia very, very quickly without, a really long quarantine, pretty specific rules that were in place at that time that didn't seem to be followed to the letter of those rules. So, I mean, look, Miami, unfortunately, has a little bit of at least a small track record of, playing a little bit loose with the rules. And I think they got away with that Gonzalo Higuain thing. But this is a club that tried to be very, very ambitious and very, very aggressive. And, sometimes when you're very, very ambitious, you end up kind of pressing a little bit and pushing the envelope, and maybe that's what happened here with the Blaise Matuidi signing. I'm not sure. No. I mean, I don't want to speculate until the other thing too is, all right, if they're found guilty, then what happens?
Yeah. Right.
Do you discharge him into like a waiver draft or something like that?
No,
void his contract. No, you're just going to fine him.
You're going to fine
not Matuidi. You're going to fine the club,
right?
And all right, so everyone pays a fine and you move on.
It might not be that simple because of the designated player spots. Because you're a fine for what happened last year. I mean, it's not like they really won a whole lot, so you're not having to forfeit games or affect anything like that. So yes, fine for that. But if he becomes a designated player, as some league sources have said, then they've got to figure out, like, can they buy down one of their existing designated players, which they might not be able to do. And if they can't, then they've got to deal somebody before the roster deadline, where they have to be roster compliant the first day of the season. So it could have some real effects as opposed to just a fine. Now, a couple things that have come up, for people who haven't seen it, the statement was very short. MLS is in a formal review specifically investigating whether the signing of Blaise Matuidi complied with MLS's salary budget and roster guidelines. They're not going to comment further until the completion of the investigation. Jeff Carlisle and Doug Robertson have reported that Paul McDonough, who is now Atlanta's VP of Soccer Ops, is not a target of the league's investigation. He was the COO, he was the sporting director at the time of the signing in Miami, but he is not being investigated as part of this. That was one question that had to come up. So now I'm really confused as to what was going on in Miami. If the COO and the sporting director is not being investigated for something that is breaking potentially salary budget and roster guidelines, what was going on down there last season?
Yeah. Well, kind of sort of firing coaches, but not actually telling them they're fired.
Well,
breaking the health and safety protocols to get players into matches against Philadelphia. Now this. And by the way, not really winning a lot. And missing the playoffs, that too. So, I don't know. I mean, let's see how this all plays out. The thing is, like, if the outcome of this is to make Matuidi a designated player, I mean, we've seen recently, in fact, as recent as last year with LA Galaxy, teams getting right up to the compliance date with a fourth designated player and figuring it out. Sometimes with a little bit of guidance from the league.
Here's the thing I would say about that, because Galaxy comes up a lot with that. 2 years ago, I think it was 19, they had to buy out Giovanni Dos Santos the days before the season because they couldn't escape it. So that he had to go. They had to buy him out, and he had to leave. He ended up at Club America. So it might not be simple. And it's even more complicated because I'm looking at their roster right now at MLS's website. And you have 3 max designated players. That's the most you can have. And right now, according to MLS's own website, which is not always 100% accurate, let's put that out there first, I think it's very safe to say Rodolfo Pizarro is a designated player. We know what the transfer fee was. He's making a lot of money. Gonzalo Higuain, definitely a designated player. Now, how they were able to last year, if all this is true, have Julian Carranza and Matias Pellegrini listed as young designated players, and that makes 4 when you can have 3, and now Blaise Matuidi might have to be a designated player. What?
Yeah.
Would Carranza or Pellegrini fall into young money?
They potentially could.
And I know even that's a little fuzzy because I don't know if you can put the young money designation on.
Nope. They here's why they wouldn't. Because Higuain, Pizarro, and Matuidi would all be the over-age designated players. And remember, the designated player rule, you were supposed to have something about the third one, if you wanted to have 3 young money guys, had to be under that certain age, and the salary had to be under a certain amount. There's no way Higuain, Pizarro, and Matuidi are fitting in that. No. So you might only be able to have 1 young money spot, even if both of them could go into that. This is madness now that we try to really get into the gist of it.
And now, I mean, on top of it, the thing with Inter Milan is still boiling and I guess coming towards a resolution. I mean, it's been a mess. It's been a mess. And, I mean, you're making good points. The thing with Matuidi, I guess, is a lot more serious than I initially thought it was when all this came out. I mean, it's very, very unusual, as you said, for the league to put out a statement like that. But my thought was, okay, they'll be fined $500,000 and we'll keep it moving. But you make some good points. I mean, if this means you have to change Matuidi's roster designation, then Miami's in big trouble.
Yeah.
And you know, there are definitely at least a couple clubs that have vacant designated player spots right now that they might have to deal with. But are those clubs willing to pay those wage bills? I don't know.
But I'm assuming not. What we saw of Matuidi, Higuain, okay, you would expect him to have a good season. Pizarro was good, but he wasn't worth the transfer fee they paid last year.
He was okay.
Yeah,
he was okay.
He was all right, but it's really tricky how you're going to get punished. It sounds like, which is fine. That's probably a fine. It's probably a very large fine. But how you now resolve it going into 2021 is where they're really going to have problems.
A couple things from Michelle Kaufman from the Miami Herald. Inter Miami has presented the, how many sentences? The 2-sentence standard response. Inter Miami acknowledges the statement made by Major League Soccer today. Look forward to fully engaging with the league's review process. Have no further comment until the completion of the investigation. End quote. Kaufman also says, Inter Miami, according to league sources, Inter Miami will be redesignating Matuidi to one of the 3 allowable designated player spots. Lewis Morgan is expected to be elevated to a TAM player.
Okay. And
she also mentions it is unclear if a player like Pellegrini could be reassigned that designation to the U22 to free up a DP spot for Matuidi, or if his salary cap cost would be bought down by TAM. And then she mentions the signings of Shawcross, Gregoire to help free Pizarro and Matuidi. So that's your Michelle Kaufman update.
They're going to run out of TAM pretty fast. It's only so much of it. They might have other allocation money, but this is a mess. And if you like,
and you're also already in training camp. This is not good. No. You know, for all we know, everyone mentioned in that Michelle Kaufman tweet might be in their training ground today.
Yeah,
this is not a distraction. There's still a ton of time before the season begins, and
you can get
the roster compliance date is April 7th. You got a ton of time to deal with that. But this is, you got a new manager in there right now, Phil Neville, and this is a big distraction as you go through the opening days of your training camp. It's got to be a huge distraction.
Yeah, this is weird. If you are a fan of Matias Pellegrini or Julian Carranza in the league, you probably want to make some calls because they might have to deal one of them. And I like both of them. Neither one really got enough consistent time last year. Both were 2 very promising players coming out of Argentina. Pellegrini had a little more hype than Carranza did. Pellegrini's a left winger, and Carranza's a forward who's very strong and aggressive. I think Carranza's the one that if they deal him, and they probably should because they have Higuain, and the minutes just aren't going to really be there for Carranza, he can make an impact somewhere in the league. If you need a forward, if you are somebody like, say, Minnesota, Julian Carranza would be a really nice addition for you, and Miami might have to deal.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, shown recent change philosophy about being a little more free spending. Going for Carranza, going from Miami to Minneapolis would be a little bit of a personal change.
A little bit.
But heck, I mean, you're going to get paid. It's okay. But yeah, I mean, Minnesota does make a lot of sense, and they actually are using their designated player spots now after going a year and a half without doing that. So
I think they could get him 100%. Down to the U22. I think they could get him into a young money spot potentially. So we'll keep you posted on Miami. I mean, this is going to be fascinating to see how it goes. Around the league, teams are getting into preseason. They're announcing their schedules. You've got all kinds of different approaches. Here in Atlanta, it's all going to be close by. The one trip to Birmingham that will have limited attendance for their season ticket holders and probably not anybody else, but we'll see by the time we get there. The other 3 are going to be behind closed doors. Did anything surprise you about the preseason schedule, Mike?
No, not at all. I mean, it's what we had been led to believe, that they'd be doing some low-key stuff at the training ground against local and regional teams. I get the feeling that Heinze wants as few eyes on these preseason fixtures as possible. That's just who he is, and that's fine. That's his right to do it. But, to play Tormenta, to play Charleston, to play Chattanooga, that's good. That's going to give you an opportunity to try some different things and deploy a lot of different players. And that's going to be critical, especially for some of your younger guys who are now on first-team contracts, guys like Jackson Conway, Efrain Morales. If they have any academy kids who are in with the first team right now, and it sounds like they do. I thought Caleb Wiley may have been one of them, and then we saw Caleb was playing against Charlotte last weekend, so that proves that he is not with the first team. But we know that there are some academy kids with the first team. We know there are some second-team players with the first team. These are really, really beneficial fixtures to give those players some games because they're going to need it. You're not as worried, I think, about fitness. I mean, it sounds like the training sessions they've had so far have been very, very intense from a fitness standpoint. So, match fitness and training fitness are two very, very different things. But I'm not as worried about that. I'm more worried about putting some of those younger guys, the Tyler Wolf, the Jackson Conway, and Efrain Morales, into game situations. And this is going to accomplish that goal. And it's probably going to make Heinze happy, too, because you can do this all behind closed doors. And if there's anything you're trying out tactically right now, there's not going to be film of it, and you're not going to be tipping your hand to Alo Walenze or anyone that would be coming up early in the league season either.
Well, and at the same time, Mike, what you're doing is by not traveling and keeping everything in one location, you're not having to worry about any kind of a travel concern. You can still focus on your game plan. Everything is under the tent, and you don't have to worry about any external factor outside of what you were talking about, where folks are sitting there and hey, let's kind of see what Atlanta United's up to. You're in control of your entire situation in a key preseason with a new coach and new players that everybody's trying to get on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. And it also limits the risk and exposure to, any potential problems you could have on road trips. So, and honestly, too, I think from an injury standpoint, it just, again, God forbid if something did happen from an injury standpoint, you're at your training ground, you can deal with things right away. So, a lot of it makes sense. I mean, would I have liked to have seen them play more fixtures? Yes. Would I have liked for them to maybe play a fixture or two against an MLS team? Yes. But this should work. I think this should work. This is not going to put Atlanta United, in my opinion, at any kind of competitive disadvantage against Alo Walenze. I think it'll be enough. I think it'll be fine. I think that Birmingham game will be really beneficial because it is going to simulate, I guess, as best as possible, what you could be dealing with, and I don't even know if they're going to have fans in Costa Rica. I don't know what CONCACAF's doing with that right now, but at least it's going to simulate like a true game day experience. So that's good. And you get it at the end of preseason as opposed to the beginning, and that part's good as well. So no real surprises, no real critique. I think it's going to be good again for the younger guys, and we'll just kind of see where it goes.
Yeah, I think CONCACAF, they haven't really issued a statement on it. I would assume they'd probably allow teams to follow local protocols.
Yeah.
I have not seen any fans in stadiums in Costa Rica in the games that I have seen or the clips I have seen. John, have you seen otherwise?
I have not.
I don't think they have. Although that could change by the time we get to April 6th. That's what's wild about all this. We're going to see fans in the stands, not this weekend in Mexico, but next weekend in Guadalajara for Chivas and America. And we saw that before, that when they played at a time when they probably shouldn't have.
How many?
Mazatlan.
25% of the stadium is where it's at for Guadalajara.
Okay.
So it's within the lines that I think a lot of places in the U.S. are going to be. We have not heard, questions have come up if there would be fans for the second leg in Kennesaw. We haven't heard anything about that yet. Kennesaw State football is allowing fans, I believe.
25%, 2,000.
2,000 fans in the building?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. And I don't think CONCACAF has made like a global ruling on this yet across the competition. So y'all's guess is as good as mine on this one. But getting ready for CONCACAF, we've seen different approaches. You know, we saw Frank DeBoer's first season. They did extended training camps, but they traveled. This is different than that because they're going to stay at home, probably because of COVID. Second year for CONCACAF, we saw DeBoer have more games on the docket. You don't have as many this time around. And again, that could be because of COVID. I mean, you just might not have a choice. But from past history, looking at Gabriel Heinze, and Mike, we've seen coaches do this in all sports when they take over. Some coaches like to be very open and talk to everybody and want to show everybody what they're doing. Others want to work and keep it behind closed doors and make it almost like a concentracion, like it's a camp, like it's a prep camp. And this one feels like that. And Heinze did it at Vélez, so it's not really a surprise. It's just a different mentality.
Yep. And that's fine. That's his right. I mean, like you said, there are two different mentalities, and you know, coaches are entitled to do whatever they want. And I don't know if there's necessarily proof that one works better than the other.
Yeah.
The team is sequestered in a hotel near the training ground. So it is, they're doing it locally, but it's still a camp. I mean, it's very much like what they did at IMG and what they did out in California. In fact, I think in California, they stayed at a Marriott out there in Fullerton. Very, very similar deal. But again, you're closer to home, and you're using your own facilities. So that probably helps you, A, with cost, and B, just from the mentality. It probably helps the players a little bit too. But, you know, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. It does make it challenging for us from a coverage standpoint, but, you know, that's not what's important right now. What's important is that Heinze gets this team prepared and puts them in their best possible position to win matches.
Did you see the stuff coming out about Open Cup and the possible format for the field of 24?
No, I have not seen that.
It looks like, and this is multiple sources not confirmed yet, but it looks like MLS is considering a plan where the 2021 Open Cup participants will be determined by points earned over the first 3 games of each team's season. So the top 8 American teams through 3 games would qualify for the tournament.
Huh. Okay. I mean, yeah, that seems fair. That's fair. Again, and I haven't looked at it in depth to figure out how many teams would be outside of these two groups, but I would think take your CONCACAF teams, they don't play. Take your Leagues Cup teams, they don't play. Who's left? Yeah. Now, if it's more than 8 American-based teams, then you probably have to look at that a little bit. If it's under 8, then you probably have to look at it too. And I'm going to guess it's probably not a clean number of 8 teams that are in that category that aren't in Leagues Cup and not in CONCACAF, American-based teams. I just think that would be the humane way to proceed, because I don't think you want to just kill teams with schedule compression. But I do think that's fair. And honestly, I mean, I kind of like the idea of qualifying based on your current year's roster and what your current year's team has accomplished. I do like that. You know, one of the things about Champions Leagues all around the world, and I guess there's really no other way to handle it because it's a full year competition, but it does seem kind of silly to me that you could have a team that could qualify and then make a dramatic change to their roster, have a completely different team, and that team is playing in Champions League based on what their predecessors did. And again, I know there's really no better way to handle it, but I do kind of like the concept of, all right, you're going to qualify based on what your current year's roster and what your current group has done. So that does seem fair. But from the standpoint of being humane, again, I would make your Leagues Cup and CONCACAF teams ineligible and proceed with who's left.
I don't think it's that bad. I don't. I think the schedule compression is not okay, it's very slightly worse than it would be in a normal season. 2 weeks worse. That's it. That's the only change. Everything was pushed back separately from beginning pushed back a month, end pushed back a month. Then you had the 2 weeks because of the labor stuff. So 2 extra midweek games. The Open Cup's a smaller tournament this year too. I mean, you'd go in at the round of 16, so it'd be there'd be 16 teams, so it'd be quarterfinal, semifinal, final. If you go all the way to the finals, that's 3 games rather than 5.
Yeah.
I think it can work. I mean, the way you're doing it, there's no other way to do it unless you're just going to put teams in because of whatever reason you want to pick. The schedule's not going to be balanced. It's just going to be who starts hot. I'll tell you this. I think what the effect it has is if you're playing a lesser team in the first 3 weeks and let's say somebody gets an early red card, you're not going to be kind because goal differential's probably going to separate this with only 3 games and the potential of 5 teams having 6 points. If you get a chance to run it up on somebody in the first 3 weeks, you better run it up on them.
Yeah. Yeah, because you would be talking about, 25 American-based teams this year, 24?
24.
Maybe it's 24.
Yeah, 24.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you're taking only the top third of those 24 teams, and out of 3 matches, you're going to have ties. Ties in the standings, not draws in matches, but ties in the standings. So, yeah, goal difference and goals scored become very important, but that could also produce some very entertaining soccer for teams that are really motivated to get in the tournament. That could produce some really entertaining soccer. It could really incentivize attacking soccer because goals scored is going to be part of those tiebreakers as well. But you're right. Like, Jason brings up a good point. What if, let's say Philadelphia. What if Philadelphia's first 3 weeks are against Austin, D.C., and I don't know. Vancouver. Thanks, John.
Then Philly's really happy.
Atlanta's first 3 weeks are against Orlando, New York City, and Dallas.
Bruh.
I mean, who's going to have an easier path into the Open Cup?
Yeah.
But there's just no way around it. There's no way around it. I get it. I mean, there's absolutely no way around it. And this is an imperfect solution for an imperfect year. But again, you're going to have a tournament. That's a victory. You're going to have a competition. So I'm happy about that. And you're going to have MLS participation. I'm happy about that too. So if it's got to be jacked up for 1 year and then in 2022 we're fully back to normal, it's better than what we had in 2020, which was diddly squat. I love the U.S. Open Cup. I want this tournament to be played no matter who is in it. So if you have to go with an imperfect solution for 1 year, I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, it'll work. And it is 1 year. There were some questions about that in the Twitch pitch. This is totally temporary, and one of the main reasons really isn't the MLS teams. It's the smaller teams and the effects on them. It's really hard for the amateur teams that qualified to get things ready to be able to participate. It's hard for the USL League One and Championship teams because of the losses they've had. You're not dealing with the same budgets and resources. So, to have all of them involved in it in those early rounds, it's just probably impossible in 21. So it's a temporary, get a tournament done. 22 should be back to normal for the Open Cup, and we will all be really, really happy about that. Mike, you've got a not-so-busy weekend with it being All-Star Weekend in the NBA, so Hawks aren't playing, so what are you doing on the grill?
I think I'm going to do a tri-tip. I was watching one of those cooking shows on public TV over the weekend, and they did this this tri-tip Santa Maria style, which is like a Northern California, I don't know if you call it a winery or a ranch or whatever. Mm-hmm. But basically, tri-tip, by the way, is kind of a leaner cut, and it's literally a tri-tip. It's got 3 tips. It's a triangle. But if you reverse sear it and you introduce a little bit of smoke flavor to it, like some good heavy, so like hickory or something like that, and you use the same kind of dry rub that you would use on like a pork product, it actually has like a really kind of smoky, different flavor. So I think I'm going to try the Santa Maria tri-tip this week. I mean, because the weather looks like it's going to be okay, maybe a little bit cold, but pretty good grilling weather. So looking forward to taking advantage of that.
J-Dub asks if you're going to the fancy butcher for that cut.
No. Actually, that's like a very economical cut. Tri-tip is compared to like a and see, this is the fun thing about it. You know, it's a cheap cut, but if you do it the right way, it can taste like a tenderloin. So, no, I think I might be able to get that at just the corner store, like a Kroger or a Publix.
Okay. I've never cooked a tri-tip.
I'll tell you, one place that has great tri-tip is Costco. And Costco, they sell it not in like the butcher case, but in the like the refrigerated section where you could also get corned beef and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like the tri-tip is manufactured in, I don't know, Nebraska, and then they ship it in a package to Costco. Like, you can get it there. It's good. It's really a lot of fun. But you have to have a big enough grill or surface area because the cut can be kind of big.
Okay. Burned asks, is that a Brazilian cut?
No, I don't think so.
I didn't think it was.
But I mean, now that Byrne says that, I mean, I think if you go to Fogo, it is entirely possible that could be one of the things on the spit that they're cutting for you.
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay.
It's a leaner cut. It's sirloin, so I guess my doctor will be happy. I'm sure I'll cancel out all the health benefits with quite a bit of red wine and potatoes and stuff like that. But no, really lean cut, and if you do it reverse sear, it's just as tender and flavorful as a tenderloin.
Excellent. All right, I might have to add that to my list of things to try out in the kitchen here in the next few weeks.
You got this. You can do it in a roasting pan, too.
Yeah.
You can absolutely do it in the oven.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the heads up. People always like the Cooking with Conti segment of the Friday show.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm happy to help.
There is a Brazilian cut like the tri-tip. It's called the picanha.
Okay, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I've heard of that. That sounds right.
Learning things every day. That's what we do around here.
All right, I'm going to go put my apron on now.
All right.
You have a good day.
Thanks for the time, Mike.
Yeah.
Make sure you're following him, Mike Conti929 on Twitter for the pictures from the grill that make all of our mouths water because they look very good and very tasty, and I need to go crash his party sometime and eat his food.
Really?
We got a lot of other things to talk about this morning. IFAB has been busy. Somewhat. I mean, there's only so much they could really do because you didn't have anything on the offside rule. We'll talk about that in a second. The change to the handball law takes effect July 1st, so for next season in European competitions. But it can be brought forward earlier. We'll see if leagues do that. MLS, people will be looking at you to see what they do. I don't think it's as big of a deal as a lot of people have. The change is accidental handball that leads to a teammate scoring a goal or having a goal-scoring opportunity will not be considered an offense. So it takes away that stupid idea that handballs for attackers were very different than handballs for defenders. If it's accidental and it's not you scoring it, it is a teammate scoring it, it's no longer considered an offense. Makes common sense to me. I get it. I'm okay with that. It doesn't clear up, and it can't, what happened yesterday with Chelsea and Liverpool with the Conte handball. Was the position of his arms making him unnaturally bigger or justifiable by the player's body movement? That's the decision for the referee. And you cannot define it in black and white. It's impossible to. And it needs to not be defined black and white. Because they tried to do that with this attacking thing, and we see how stupid it is. So they changed that part. Okay, and people are making their takes, and there's a lot of really stupid things being said. Follow the people who understand the laws of the game, and follow the referees who are talking about this and that conversation, because it's very important. Like people, I'm seeing the responses to Sam Wallace, who writes for The Telegraph. They're making this up as they go along. No, they're actually doing what they do. It's an AGM, which means annual, and they're looking at the laws of the game as they should and making adjustments as they should. That's how you adjust and make it better. Otherwise, let's just stick with the rules as they were in 1905 and see what happens. The offside situation. Now, there's been a little bit of confusion about this. There is no change yet. None. IFAB at the AGM discussed the margin of error or AR decision for offside and VAR. They discussed it. Statistics need to be examined as to whether Law 11 needs to be changed. That's the offside law. There have been 2 changes to the offside law in 135 years. The Dutch method has come up, the whole idea of the margin of error. Statistics provided to the committee, IFAB's committee. For example, and this isn't enough to make a change. And there was no recommendation of a trial process for changing the offside law, which is something they'll have to do. Statistics provided to the committee, for example, 4 plays in the Premier League deemed offside and negated a goal. 2 of them would have been goals if there was a margin of error or Dutch method, which is essentially the margin of error, if that had been applied. 4 situations and 2, that's not enough. That doesn't even get you to creating a trial process to change the offside law. There are no trials confirmed. There's nothing decided. There's nothing going in place just yet. There's been, I think, some confusion about that. They discussed it. They need more information to come up with a trial process. They need leagues or competitions to sign up for the trial process. Then they can actually decide if they're going to make a change to the law, which they have only changed twice in 135 years. That's where things stand with IFAB. They have to continue with the discussions around offside, in my opinion, because we see it every day now somewhere in the world, something about, well, is it the armpit? Is it the sleeve? Is it the top of the shoulder? What is it? Where's the line? Da-da-da. And that part is an aspect of it, but the more important conversation that I keep coming back to is, what do we want the feel of the offside law to be? Because wherever you define it, if you want to say the elbow, if you want to say you're judging it by the torso, if you want to say you're judging it by the front foot, the back foot, if you want to judge it by the waist, I mean, pick a body part, the head, there's going to be a line. Wherever you set the line, there's going to be a line. The issue is not so much the body part you choose. The issue is, do you want to define it that way? If it's close, do you want to allow it? That goes to the AR making the call, as we did before. And what will happen will be what happens with sports. If you say, we're not going to use VAR, VAR cannot rule on offside anymore. Because this is the discussion, in my opinion. It's not about shoulder and armpits and all that. That's a red herring. That's to distract you. Do you want VAR to decide offside anymore? Period. Or do you want VAR to decide it, but not with any technology to draw lines? Okay, it feels kind of like a wasted point. If you have technology to actually see if it's on or off, then you should use it. But if you don't want to, okay, fine. Do you just want to let the AR or maybe the VAR make the decision with their eyes? Because what will happen will be what we see. Okay, if somebody makes a call and they say it's offside, no goal. And we go back and look at the replay and like, oh, wait a minute, he was onside. That should have been a goal. Outrage.
Oh, yeah.
Yelling and screaming.
Mm-hmm.
Light everything on fire. We're angry.
Yes.
Or if it goes the other way, if they say, you know, it should have been a goal and they called it back. Outrage.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be outrage when you don't get the call you want. Period. Yep. No matter what situation you do. Which one's more palatable? Because I don't think anybody's really digging into that aspect of it. You can draw the line wherever you want. You can set whatever body part you want. All that's fine. Outside of that, like, you're going to get mad when a call goes against you if it's close. You're going to have some justification to say, well, look, see, it was this body part. See, if it was the other body part, it would have been a goal. Well, see, if it was 1993, it would have been a goal. Well, see, the AR's blind. I mean, it's going to be something to get mad about. I don't know what they can do to fix that. They can move wherever you decide the line is, and they can move however you decide the actual offense. But people are going to be mad when a call goes against their team in this situation because it's a really close call. I don't know. I don't know how you fix that. I really don't.
I don't know how you fix outrage, because outrage is always going to be there. I mean, that to me is, it's no matter what you do with the rule, no matter how a rule is adjusted, you're always going to have someone who feels aggrieved because the situation goes against them, no matter how you lay it out, no matter what the review process is, and no matter what the end result is in any given situation. So it's just coming up with something that kind of, sort of, hopefully can mitigate the outrage, but where is that point? That's the larger question.
I don't know. You also have the element that Alex Pacine brings into it. They have to find a way to define when a position actually is giving advantage. That's something I think you can maybe define a little bit better, like the whole situation with the Caden Clark goal and Brad Kazan, and he's not screening the line of sight in an offside position, but he is affecting the play.
Yeah.
They can either define it in the law, or they can define it in the way the law is implemented, because you have different layers of it, and that can be down to national governing bodies. But that does factor in, of course. Question about Timo Werner's goal yesterday that was not a goal. Domer is yelling. Ragamuffin is actually agreeing that the goal should have stood. And it's down to where you're drawing the line. So, I mean, technically, no, the goal shouldn't have stood because of the way it's defined. The feel is, probably should have stood. Okay, so how can you define the law to get to the feel? And I don't know. I really, truly don't. Because if you do, I think it's Arsene Wenger who is talking about basically backing it up to the last possible point of being onside as opposed to the front, essentially the back foot instead of the front foot kind of idea. Okay, there's still a line again, and it's going to be close, and you're going to see things come down to millimeters, and that's just what it is. There's just no way around that. So wherever you set it, you're going to have a problem. Is there any other way to define it? Is there any other way to do it? Are people going to accept it? Are people going to accept if you say, okay, no more VAR on offside, the AR puts their flag up like they used to, or they don't put their flag up, and that's it. They go back to not waiting until the play is complete. They make their decision, and boom, that's it. Okay, then people will be mad with ARs, but is that better than what we have? It might be. I don't know. Or do you say, okay, VAR, you can use replay, but you can't do anything beyond that. It has to be just from what you can do in terms of speeding it up, slowing it down. You can look at it. You can help. Do you try to define a clear and obvious error component of that, where the AR still has to make their decision? They can make it after the play is completed, but then the VAR only looks at it with no lines and has to decide the clear and obvious error. If it's very clearly offside, how do you define that? If it is really obvious they are offside or onside, then okay, the VAR gets involved. We have this argument about everything else VARs are involved in. So how do you make it better? Because I just keep coming back to this whole thing with VAR. I want calls to be right, 100%. That's why you have faith in referees. You want them to make the right call. They need help to make the right call. The game is fast. The game is on a huge pitch. They need help to make the right calls. They need more help than they were getting previously before VAR. Good. VAR corrects more correctly than it gets wrong and makes things worse. I really, truly believe that. But how can it be even better? What can we do to prevent this stuff about every call that everybody falls apart about and wants to blame everything else when it just comes down to we don't like close calls?
Well, and then the ruling with accidental handball this morning, everybody's drawing their attention back to the Lamina handball yesterday, which would have, I guess today, been a full equalizer.
Not today, because the Premier League has to decide if they are going to implement this now. These changes to the laws of the game are in the next published book, which is July 1st. They can implement it now. The Premier League will have to make that decision. That's another thing that people are completely wrecking with all of this. IFAB makes their rules for the next season, and they go off the European calendar. That's what they're basing it on. So it's July 1st. This goes into effect worldwide. So for the Premier League, they can say, yes, we are going to take IFAB's new interpretation today. It is in effect going forward. They haven't done that yet. So it would not change Fulham's situation right now. It would next year, but it doesn't immediately. For leagues that don't start in August of 21 and start in, let's say, April 17th, like Major League Soccer, they have to make a decision because typically they have operated under the previous year's laws of the game. Because the new laws of the game take effect mid-season, you don't want to change the laws of the game mid-season. They need to say, we are operating now under this, or we are going with the previous year's book. I think they should operate under the current book. They should go ahead and move ahead with it. Because this season starting late, it doesn't change anything. You know, and in a normal year, this might have been the opening weekend of the season. You might have said, well, we've played a week, we don't want to change it now. Okay, fine, I get it. Now you can do it. MLS should adopt the new definitions on handball for the 21 season, and they should announce that ASAP. Pro should be on out in front of this and do it now, so there's no confusion.
Good morning, Jarrett.
Good morning, John.
Yo.
Good morning, Jason.
Your article's up.
Yeah, it is.
My power in the whole neighborhood crashed immediately after I posted it. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah, that's exactly
that's
right.
That's not a coincidence.
No.
I thought it was just going to be you. Oh, they're talking about IFAB today. Power's going to go down for the good of everyone's sanity. It needs to be discussed, but
I didn't even get to the IFAB studying before the power went down. Then I'm like hoping my phone power is going to last long enough so I don't have to go out to the car.
That was what I was worried about.
Well, I was about to, and
maybe that's what the universe was. No, we're gonna try and help you here and save you for this morning, and we'll save it for the secret, I guess, 4th hour that exists on Saturday mornings. Insanity.
Yeah, not so much. We're stuck with IFAB at this point.
Ugh.
I mean, we've all talked about this so many times, and there's so much confusion about it, and there always will be because these things are difficult. The change that they made, Jarrett, about the accidental handball that leads to a teammate scoring a goal or having a goal-scoring opportunity, that is no longer an automatic handball offense. You good with that?
Yeah, I think so. It's honestly like the first thing I think about with a lot of the rulings are like the way they're implemented by leagues, and like I've gone blue in the face, I think, yelling about this. For instance, with the offside rule, I don't have a problem with the offside rule. My biggest beef is with the way, say, the EPL uses it with the line instead of like using it like everyone else does, where we need to take a look at that. Go look at the monitor. If you can't look at it with your eye and tell me that someone's clearly offside, then yeah, then it's not offside. My issue with that remains using the laser technology, which is something the EPL has to, that's between them and God. Handball's just such a weird thing, and I think you touched on it as well in that the game is changing in terms of the way it's played because it is faster. This is a side effect of the way you increase training, the way people are physically and what they're capable of. Because we have this in every sport where we think about, oh, what if so-and-so had played in the old days? Oh, they'd have probably dominated. If you put Barry Bonds in the 1920s, what's he going to do? If you put Lionel
Well,
Messi,
if you put Barry Bonds in the 1920s, he wouldn't have had the HGH that made his head
I was going to say,
expand.
which version of Bonds are we talking about here?
the one that went 40-40 before his head
There
blew up
we
8
go.
sizes.
Yes,
The dude who was
fun.
still a monster.
Absolutely.
Barry Bonds was on track for a Hall of Fame career before he started pulling out the plungers.
Allegedly, I think.
Allegedly.
Hey, look, my favorite story is still that Andy Van Slyke tried to get him to move in, take a couple steps in during the Sid Slid play, and he said no. If he'd taken a couple steps in, maybe he throws out Sid Bremen home plate. Suck it, Bonds. Anyway.
Wow, Jarrett.
One of my best friends is a Pittsburgh fan, and we don't discuss that game because it makes him sad. But it's just a matter of like the way the game is played these days. You train people, you work out, you get stronger, you get leaner and stronger at the same time, and then you get faster. This is going to be something that happens. Guarantee you, some of the guys back in the day weren't kicking the ball as hard or as being as creative as quickly as they are today. The pace of the game has picked up so much. The way the cleats are designed, they weigh almost a negative weight. The way the ball is designed to just basically fire off. Everything is so fast. It's so hard, I think, with handballs to get out of the way of things. If it's a close range, if it's between 5 and 10 feet, someone really puts their laces through a ball. I mean, unless you've had someone kick a ball at you that distance, it's hard to explain like how quickly that thing gets up on you. The way the game has changed, and how fast everything moves, it's tough on the officials. We know that. We've discussed it. But it's also tough on the players to be able to move their body in a way that's going to keep them from being in a position that more forces the official to make a call.
Byrne brings up the use of VAR to decide offside has helped the defense and has in turn allowed teams to play a higher line, or it's benefited teams that are already playing a high line because they have that protection. I mean, I can see that. You're not relying on a AR to get the call right, which this would be the interesting study. They talked about needing more statistics, more information. Don't just do the current look at, okay, well, if you had the situation that VAR ruled on, and if you didn't have VAR, or if you allowed whatever caveats you're doing, look at the previous stuff too, with how things were defined. I know you can't go to Hawkeye, but you can look at it with at least the naked eye and potentially with some form of technology to determine, were ARs biased, not intentionally, but biased or prejudiced, maybe is a better word here, to allowing close calls to go to the attacker. Where if you were playing a high line and you were then like, well, wait a minute, man, if it's close, they're going to let it go. Maybe we need to take a step back. Maybe we need to be a little more careful. Now, Pep, when he went to Bayern, pushed their lineup super high. It freaked everybody out in Germany because nobody ever seen it. He kept doing it, pushing up higher and higher. So teams were doing it before VAR. But has it now made it even more advantageous to do because you're taking out that prejudice or that bias of the AR to, it's close, give it to the attacker? That would be a study I would like to see. Go back and look at games from 14, 15, 16, pre-VAR, and look at how many calls we think, from looking at the replays and using technology to determine that the AR got it wrong in favor of the attacker. Because the reason that's important to me is this whole idea of the feel of the game. People seem to get really upset about close calls taking goals away. Everybody points to goals. Okay, that's it. So if you want to allow more goals and you want to give more benefit to the attacker, can you do that in a way you actually define the law to give the benefit? Because that's the feel that people want. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is just as simple as moving the line back instead of whatever that front body part is. Maybe it is the chest. Maybe it is the torso. Maybe it's the back foot. I don't know. But if that's the feel we want, and we can go back and show, like, hey, ARs were giving the attacker more benefit of the doubt than the defenders, then find a way to define the law that way.
And I mean, for me, when it comes to implementation. I don't. Maybe it is something. And this is implementation of VAR in and of itself. I'd like to see something akin to Hawkeye across the board because of venues. All venues are not the same. And so your angles of your TV cameras are going to be different. Your angles of your axes are going to be different when you're drawing points to one place or another. And, for me, I would just like some uniformity because I know that they're going to, and this goes back to the point of being aggrieved that we talked about earlier, is that you're going to see something differently than someone else if you're a fan of one side or the other. So I'm just looking for that element that will neutralize that, so where the evidence is available for both sides, you can sit there and have it be as conclusive as it can be across the board.
But you're talking about the big leagues, John. Like, the Guatemalan League isn't going to afford Hawkeye.
True.
Your local college program isn't going to have Hawkeye. Your U17 game down the street isn't going to have Hawkeye. And IFAB has to create laws of the game that take that in mind. So, I mean, sure, I think it's great to have more information if you want to make the right decision. I'm 100% on board with that. But it doesn't solve the issue because people have a problem with Hawkeye. I think it's defining what people want in the game is what IFAB has to do now. People feel aggrieved by these decisions taking goals away. I don't see as much anger from people when a goal is allowed incorrectly or correctly. It's correctly if you have Hawkeye, I think. Even though, yes, there is a margin of error. It's super, super tiny. It's really not the issue, but I know everybody points to it. People don't get as mad about goals that are allowed. And I go back to the Women's World Cup in 19 when there were multiple goals that were very important in the competition that the AR put their flag up at the end of the play. VAR showed that it was a good goal. We don't talk about those. We only talk about the ones that are taken away.
Right.
So if that's the feel, then find a way to define the law in the way that it was previously being called, that people want to go back to those good old days. Yeah. That's what you have to do if you're IFAB.
And I think if you're a fan, I think that you're predisposed to wanting to see more offense than wanting to see more defense. And I think that that's why everybody's gravitating toward that notion of goals being taken away or goals being given as opposed to something else in something else in the field of play. I think that we're just naturally gravitating toward the excitement of goals being scored.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, these are difficult decisions, and IFAB did make a statement. Let me make sure I've got this from IFAB. Our aim as IFAB is always to see if we can make football more attractive without changing the nature of football. With the change in the speed of the game, especially VAR, which makes it clear when there is an offside and when there is not, we have been saying that maybe we can think about a law which allows more attack. Arsene Wenger presented to us in summary, it is if the attacking player is ahead of the second to last defender, but still with one part of the body that can score in line. So giving the attacking player a bit more room. Obviously, such a change will need to be tested. We have to see what kind of impact this would have on the game, if positive, if negative. To say it will happen in a few years from now, well, we will see. They have to look at it. Now, that's from Gianni Infantino, head of FIFA, who is involved in IFAB. The IFAB technical director, David Elleray, told Dale Johnson of ESPN, in terms of Arsene Wenger's idea, it's not a preferred solution. It is a possible solution. Timelines are impossible to give, especially given the pandemic, but it's an interesting idea which will be looked at carefully. You have to define a law of the game based off people's feelings about it, which is difficult. Yeah. And you can't use technology to define it because this has to affect all games around the world where technology might not be available. It's a tricky one. Is this the change that makes up? And it goes back to that, I would love to see 14 to 16, the 3 years previous from VAR. Did ARs, unknowingly give advantage to the attackers? If they did, and we liked it, which I think most people would say that they did,
Yeah.
Okay, then how do you now define it in the VAR world to give advantage to the attackers? Is it moving the line back to make up for losing the bias or prejudice or just the tricks with our eyes of seeing these things? Is it moving the line back to give them more room? Maybe it is. Maybe it's just that simple. And maybe it's if you have any part that is on, you're good.
Yeah. And do it that way. It's like, if any part is on, you're on, as opposed to any part being off, you're off. Just go to the inverse of the way it's being implemented.
Yeah, Blue Boy hanging out in the Twitch pitch. What's up? Offsides was implemented to stop people goal hanging and standing right next to the goal. Absolutely. You do want goals. I agree with you. There's got to be a law here that can be defined. It can't just be, well, we want to give attackers advantages. If that is the way to do it, let's test it. Let's find a league and a competition to test it and get some real data. If it gets us to where we want to be, then cool. Then defenses have to adjust. And I think people who argue against it just saying, well, it's going to change how you defend. Well, so did not being allowed to play the ball back to the goalkeeper and him pick it up. Go and watch the 1990 World Cup. It's mind-blowing. Like, it's so weird now. And that's how a lot of us, older folks, grew up in the game. Play it back to your goalkeeper. You want to kill some time, play it back to the goalkeeper. He picks it up. He dribbles it around a little bit. He rolls it back out. Play it back to him again. It's, it wasn't fun. Denmark, 1992 Euros, the last competition that had it. I mean, it was not fun soccer. So they changed it. Defenses adjusted. Maybe Neil Lennon didn't adjust, Jarrett. Maybe he was still stuck in those days.
No, Jared had to go.
Oh, man, I wanted to take shots at Celtic and Neil Lennon.
Well, you can still take shots at Celtic.
It's not as much fun when Jarrett's not here.
I know. And then I was going to ask him about Cameron Harper being signed by Red Bulls, too. So if he hops back in, we can get back to that.
Yeah, it's not as much fun.
I know.
Burns said, what's interesting is, to me, that clearly attackers have not adjusted to VAR and offside. That's true. And, yeah, I don't know why. I mean, just start your run just a little bit later. You can handle it. We saw it in the game in Brazil that decided the title, where it's like you're looking across the line. You know it's going to be looked at. It's the biggest moment of the match. You're looking at the defender in front of you that is keeping you offside. Just start later. You're watching it play out, and you can't do it because of the moment. So, yeah, I did kind of go back in my day, J-Dub. I'm sorry about that. Blue Boy says, kind of. I'm not saying go back to that. I don't want you to play it back to the goalkeeper and have him pick it up. I'm just saying it was like that. Blue Boy says the defenders will have to be faster. Players like Godin and Thiago Silva will struggle. Yep. You've got to figure out how to use those kind of players. You can't play as high of a line with them. You can still use them, and they can still be effective, but it affects your whole strategy, as we talked about at the beginning of the show with Liverpool. If you don't have that press up high, you can't play as high of a line. If you play a high line, you got to press. If you're not going to press, you got to play a deeper line. You might have to play a deeper line because of the defenders you have. Okay, then you don't need to press as much because then you're separate. If you play a deeper line because of the defenders you have, and that makes your decision, you don't want your attack to be way up here pressing, then their space is here. You want to compress the space, and this is what you're going to see in Atlanta with Gabriel Heinze. He wants to squeeze the game when Atlanta doesn't have the ball. Shorten the field. Make it tighter. Yes, there's going to be space behind the back line. He's going to dare you that, okay, first you've got to beat our pressure. Second, you've got to drop a ball in perfectly that our goalkeeper can't come out and play behind the back line. Third, you've got to time your run effectively for your player to be onside. I'm going to take my chances with that you can't pull that off consistently. Liverpool has tried to do that without the high pressure. So it's increased the chances of the other team being successful. That's where it gets to. Will says, if you're going to use technology, visual's still the best. It translates best to places where you lack tech, and it's going to be more accurate than any kind of on-ball or on-player sensor. It does. I still think you have to define the law differently because you're not going to back off of technology where you have it. So that has to go into this. And if it creates more opportunities for attackers, then defenders will adjust. Teams will either have to increase the high pressure which the game's already heading in that direction for a lot of teams. Or some teams will have to say, we can't press that high. We don't have the players to do it. We've got to sit deeper. It will affect tactics if they say, well, now you've got essentially, if somebody takes a really long stride, 3 more feet that you could be onside with. All right, you're going to have to adjust to that one way or the other. And that's what we do. That's what happens with the game. A lot of people are on the idea of really not liking the outstretched arm kind of offside, the armpit thing. I'm okay with them addressing that, and if they move it back to the torso, that's heading in the right direction of what Arsene Wenger's proposed, but it's not quite as far. All that's fine to me. You're going to have to test it, and you're going to have to figure that out, which is better. But I think you're going to have to move the line back a little bit to make up for the change that AR's had in mind, where they gave the attackers more leeway when you didn't have VAR. I think you have to move it back somewhere. How far do you move it back? That's for people with a lot more research to determine. Is it the chest? Is it the torso? Is it the middle of the body shape? Do you just... All right, if they're in full stride and they're like this, is just right dead in the middle, that's the line. Is it the back foot or the back element that's onside? I don't know. I don't have the information or the research to tell you that. But I think you've got to move it back from the front part that determines it, because nobody likes the armpit thing or the arm or the shoulder.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that determining offside. So, okay, move it back somewhere, figure it out, and go from there. J-Dub says... You take the total width of the attacker, divide it by 2, find the center point of the attacker, use that as the offside point. You can. In the leagues that use the really detailed technology.
Yeah.
In leagues that don't, then what? You got to define that. And is it just the middle of the attacker shape? Do you say it's the torso? Do you say it's the middle of the chest? Do you say it's further back than that? You've got to think in defining the law in the most broad sense as possible. And it's not easy, and that's why this is a very difficult situation. It just is. A lot of people thought that they made this change on the handball portion because of what happened with Fulham yesterday. They absolutely did not. It was already on the books going back to November. It had come up. So it was not a reaction to what happened yesterday. It's not how IFAB works. Again, they have to think very big picture on this stuff. It's a challenge. I wouldn't want to be on that committee, but they need more information, and they're going to have to create something that gets you to a trial. They need a proposal on the change to the offside law to get to a trial, to then get more information to actually make a change. You're not close to that yet. A couple years away at least.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I'm all for moving it back because, if you have an outstretched arm, that arm is not supposed to be integral in putting the ball in the back of the net. It's other body parts. No, that's incorrect, John. It's not like your hand is out there. That doesn't define offside. We know that. It's a playable body part. They're not drawing the line based off of that. You know that. They're not drawing it off the arm. Right.
So then what you just said is not correct. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, then why'd you say it?
Well, no, it's like, I'm all for, like I said, I'm just all for moving it back. And it's just, I know I don't want folks to sit here and look at the armpit.
The playable body part.
Yeah, playable body part. You're sitting there and it's like, go from the armpit for those watching on the Twitch pitch, for folks sitting there looking at me grabbing my underarm, which I'm sure is incredibly attractive. But playable body part, work your way backwards and try to figure out what that point is.
Yeah. It's the terminology. It's, I know. Again, I get really stupid about it, but I don't want anybody to think that we're saying that. Oh yeah, it's offside if he's running and his hand is stretched out. No. They don't. That's not what's used. It's the playable body part wherever that shoulder is. That's the line. If we don't want that to be the line, let's move it back and figure it out. Back to the handball stuff. Jason Nix is yelling. Why are offside or offensive handballs in the box different than defensive ones? Nonsense. I agree. It's nonsense. It should be the same. And it should be a judgment on intent is where I keep going to. The Fulham one was an awful call.
Yes,
arm was against
absolutely.
the body. He had to make himself bigger. No, that's an awful call. It's just a bad call. And there will be bad calls. Even with VAR, even with replays, these are human beings. In those situations, not the offside thing where you have technology to draw it, that's a different conversation. You will have referees make bad calls. 100%. 100%. We've always had that, so that's nothing new. You should have less of it, but the Fulham one was just a bad call. Even awful. Beyond the idea of the offensive player and any of those things, you can do whatever you want. It's a bad call because the player was not making themselves bigger. They were in a natural position. The arm was, in line with whatever silhouette you want to say. I mean, it's a bad call. Just a bad call.
Oh, awful call.
Yeah, it's a mess, and it's going to be really difficult for them to get this stuff right. They have to keep working on it. They absolutely have to keep working at it. What else is on the board? What's on the Twitters, John?
Okay, so going back to our discussion at the beginning of the show, having to do with the Premier League and yesterday, Nathan Pugh has recognized that it's okay for, how you always sit there and we're identifying anything going wrong with Newcastle. You always have that precedent phrase with Alex Pacine.
Yeah, I kind of addressed this earlier.
Yeah. But now Nathan says it's feel free to use "you're sorry, Nathan," preceding Liverpool now. He says, up the Reds, the Stripes can hurry up and start now. He says that not that it really matters. It was good to see Mane stay on his feet yesterday, and past Sunday for that matter. And good that he didn't respond to getting elbowed in the head. So desperate and crap that they won't even do any dark arts or have balls.
Those are two different things, though. If you fouled, go down. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. If you try to stay on your feet, I wish referees would identify that, hey, it can still be a foul if the player doesn't fall down. Referees need to be better about that to not encourage players to fall down and look for calls. But yeah, from now on, I guess we have to apologize to Liverpool fans too because it's bad times.
And that blends into an Atlanta United question from Nathan.
Okay.
He says, and that's why having a hard man in the middle of the park is necessary. Will Atlanta have a player like that? Escobar may have been a yellow waiting to happen, but at least he'd rock someone. So would Larry. Do we have any hard men now?
You should go look at Franco Ibarra's stats, and you'll be fine with it. He led the league in tackles in Argentina. He picked up quite a few yellow cards in his limited time. He'll be fine. Sosa can handle himself, too. You'll be fine. And you don't need a hard man to have a hard man in the midfield. It's not 1985 anymore in the game. Roy Keane's days are done. Even Gennaro Gattuso's days of that style are done. And we've seen Gattuso adjust the way he plays. He doesn't manage his teams like he played. So, no, just having a guy who's tough to be tough, no, you don't need that. You do need somebody who can put a good tackle in from time to time, but they have to be able to play too. They can't just be a guy who's a hack job. So I think you've got both. But Ibarra can get stuck into a tackle. I think Sosa's going to be okay. Miles is actually a little more nasty in his tackle than he gets credit for. So, you'll be okay. Vinnie Jones is not making a comeback, Alex Pacine. It's not happening.
And the other thing that I will post into the Discord, when you were having your AMA while you were waiting for the power to come on, Tafka thought that the Barca Messi situation could be a good movie. So I went ahead and asked him, I said, okay, cast it for me. And so he put his initial cast for the Barca Messi movie in the timeline, and I'll flip it to the Discord and see what folks think.
It's not even a Messi movie. It's just a Barcelona movie because, you've got a president who's trying to change the perception of his enemies using social media. You've got presidential election intrigue. You've got leaking of Lionel Messi's contract by maybe the president who was trying to trash Lionel Messi on social media, who immediately said, I didn't leak it.
I didn't do it.
When he's one of the only people who would have had access to it when it was signed. You've got a lot of those things going on. So, yes.
Yeah, so I will. Well, it's like I was posting the casting to the Discord, and I didn't want you to hear tappity tap, so that was
I'm
why.
catching you by surprise. I'm keeping you on your feet, John. Come on, let's go.
Nothing wrong with
Let's
that.
go.
But that officially catches us up on the Twitters.
That's all. All right. If you want to tweet at us. At Soccer Down Here. You got questions in the Twitch pitch? Let's do it. Like I said, I was preparing for the show with all of my news and notes, and as I'm starting, power goes out. So I don't have my news and notes. We will talk about the games of the weekend because this is something that Tafka had asked about. And I think it's a good public service to do because trying to figure out what game is on what channel from time to time is a little difficult these days in the United States. We will talk about some of the games that we will be keeping an eye on and where you can watch them this weekend. Today... And LiveSoccerTV.com is a really good source. They don't always have every single thing because things move faster than they can grab. We can try to fill in the gaps there. But today, your games that you might be interested in, I hope you're not interested in Schalke and Mainz, except for us who made our picks on soccer over there. I mean, it's going to be a bad game. It's going to set German football back at least a decade. But I picked a draw anyway because it's going to be that bad. Valencia Villarreal's at 3 o'clock. Schalke Mainz, if you are a glutton for punishment, is 2:30 on ESPN+. Valencia Villarreal in Spain is on BN and Fanatis. That's at 3 o'clock. You have games from Argentina tonight. A sneaky good one is at 7:30. Central Cordoba hosting Banfield. That's at 7:30. That is on Fanatis. It's also on TIC Internacional. If you want to watch the Argentine games or anything else that Fanatis has, fntz.co/soccer down here to get your sign up. Independiente del Valle, who has been very poor in Ecuador this season so far with a lot of turnover on the player side, new manager, a lot of things they are working through. They are hosting Mushuk Runa in Ecuador at 7 o'clock on Goal TV and Fanatis. So I don't leave Mexico out for John. Neither one of the games are actually that exciting. I probably should leave it out. I will pick Puebla and Tigres just because Tigres has been generally very good. That's at 10:30 on TUDN. Tomorrow, your games to keep an eye on. Burnley and Arsenal at 7:30. That is an NBC SN game. Next up, you've got your 9:30 games in Germany. The pick of it is Mönchengladbach hosting Leverkusen. All of those are on ESPN+. RB Leipzig is at Freiburg at 9:30 as well. Hoffenheim hosting Wolfsburg. So you've got 5 in Germany at 9:30. 10 o'clock. Ooh, Sheffield United and Southampton. EBCSN.
Nope.
You do have Swansea and Middlesbrough on ESPN+. They get the championship time slot. What else do we have? Fanatis and BN Connect has Kaiser Chiefs and Petro de Luanda from the African Champions League. That is at 11 a.m. You've got a couple other games from that competition as well on your Fanatis BN Sports Connect channels. Let's see. What else on the Saturday? Ooh, ABC and ESPN Deportes, but big ABC, Bundesliga debut.
They're blowing it up.
Bayern and Dortmund. Big game in Germany. 12:30. I think there's pregame, there's studio stuff. Kay Murray is involved. Derek Ray is on play-by-play. Taylor Twellman is on color. Dortmund is in 5th now. Bayern Munich has a 2-point lead on RB Leipzig, who plays earlier in the day. Wolfsburg is 7 points behind Bayern. Eintracht Frankfurt is 10 points behind Bayern. Dortmund is trying to get into a Champions League spot. They are 3 points out of a Champions League spot. Big game, big presentation. Your local ABC affiliate will have that. If you decide you don't want to watch that or you want to take a break at that point in the day, you can come back at 2:45 for Juventus and Lazio, ESPN+. Osasuna and Barcelona, 3 o'clock, BN and Fanatis. PSG goes to Brest. That is at 3:10 on BN and Fanatis. What do we have the rest of the day? You've got random Brazilian stuff going on because we're in the state championships right now and the state leagues, and it's really odd. Fanatis is picking some of them up, I am seeing, but I think it's a little bit all over the place. They could have Sao Paulo and Santos at 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. You might want to take a look at that. I don't know which ones they have the rights to and which ones they don't of the state leagues. But that's an interesting one, Sao Paulo and Santos at 5 o'clock. Another sneaky good one when it comes to Argentina is Colón and Aldosivi at 5:20. If you want to get a sense of Gabriel Heinze's play style and model of play, watch Aldosivi and Fernando Gago, who is a brand new manager a few games into his managerial career. He played for Heinze. Sorry, Blue Boy, I'm totally confusing you with the times. My bad. These are Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. Atlanta time is where we're based. Sneaky good one with Colón and Aldosivi, and it's a good little sneak peek at the way that Atlanta United will look like under Gabriel Heinze. And Colón, you've got Pulga Rodriguez, and Pulga's worth watching by himself. So Saturday at 5:20 on Fanatis. Lanús also plays at 5:20. They host Atlético Tucumán. Good one in Ecuador, 5:30, Gol TV, Liga de Quito, and Universidad Católica. Two heavyweights in Ecuador matching up at 5:30. What do you have in the evening in Mexico? Club America and León. That's an ESPN Deportes game, 8 o'clock. Probably one of the best games of the weekend in Mexico, right, John?
Hey, León has kind of laid an egg in the early part of the season, and so their expectations were a lot higher, and right now they're hanging out in the lower half of the table. Club America is at a plus 125 at home. Club León is twice that.
Yeah, that's not good. If you're a real glutton for punishment, 7 a.m. Sunday.
Nope.
West Brom hosting Newcastle. Woo!
That's a hard no on the Woo!
Gravy game not happening. Galore. All the goal-scoring chances. All the attacking play. The high line defensively. If the defenders are outside the 18, Big Sam gets afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible. And Steve Bruce gets equally afraid.
West Brom's favored, by the way.
Yippee. I'm very excited for West Brom. That Newcastle, you should be very ashamed of yourselves. Sorry, Alex Bassine. You've got 7 o'clock Dundee United and Celtic. You can watch the Celtic implosion continue. That is at Dundee United. That's ESPN Plus at 7 a.m. on Sunday. Let's see. What else would I jump to? Liverpool and Fulham, 9 a.m. NBC SN. It's better than West Brom and Newcastle.
Yep, Manchester Derby to follow.
Why are you skipping ahead? There's other games. You think there's no other games outside of England, right? I forgot. You're the English snob.
There you go.
You might want to watch Fiorentina and Parma. It's at 9 a.m. on ESPN2. You might want to watch Hellas Verona and Milan. We know Nick Khalifi will be watching that at 9 a.m. You just skipped on ahead from all of that. You might want to watch the FA Women's Super League, Manchester City and Everton, 9 a.m. That is on NBCSports.com. It is also on Fanatis and Ata Football. City and Everton, FA Women's Super League, 9 a.m. on Sunday. Manchester United and Aston Villa from the FA Women's Super League, also at 9 a.m. John's just trying to skip ahead. Just skipping. You skipped. And this shows, okay, now there's no question about the English snobbery. There's absolutely no question about John's English snobbery. Right. We're talking about Liverpool and Fulham. Manchester Derby. What about the Madrid Derby, John?
I've heard of that.
10:15. You skipped that one. It is an anti-Spanish perception from John Nelson.
Well, considering that you intimidated me during the last Power Hour to watch La Liga,
and you skipped it, so it didn't work. I need to intimidate you more.
I was watching the game.
You skipped it right here. You just wanted to go straight ahead to the Manchester Derby. Forget the Madrid Derby. It's all about the Manchester Derby for John.
Yes, because I have a thing against Madridistas. Of course I do.
You have a thing against anything that's not English. That's what we've learned. And Mexican. We have learned that you have prejudices when it comes to the games you watch. It's okay. Blue Boy's with you. Blue Boy says the Manchester Derby is better than the Madrid Derby. I think the Madrid Derby has a lot more on the line. And I think that's why, if I'm picking between the two, I'm watching La Liga on that one. They overlap a little bit, but you can watch two screens. You can watch the first half of the Madrid Derby. If it's good, you can stick with it and come back for the second half of the Manchester Derby. Watch them both. Find a way. Don't have to pick. Doesn't have to be a choice. I think City will dominate Manchester United. I think the better game will be in Madrid.
Yes.
I do think Atleti will keep it tight and find a way not to lose. But I think the better game, the more compelling game, will be Atleti and Real Madrid, by far.
And also during the normal power hour time, Aberdeen and Hamilton.
So now you're confusing everybody. You're going back to Saturday. We're already on Sunday. You're just jumping around. We're picking the highlighted games. This isn't every game. This isn't John's schedule of games. These are the big games of the weekend. Domer wants to throw in a Serie C battle in here. No.
So you're saying that Stremer and Fuglafjordur in the Faroe Islands tomorrow morning doesn't count?
Not because we're on Sunday, and no, you're probably the only person outside of the Faroe Islands watching that game, John. And why would you do that? You want to skip the Madrid Derby, and you want to bring up a Faroe Islands match. That's what you're doing to this show. Good grief. I don't even know where to go from all of that.
Middle of the afternoon on Sunday.
No, I know where we are. I'm skipping around, okay? You've got... Fox Soccer Plus is back into the mix with Palmeiras and Gremio at 4 o'clock. That would be probably more likely on FS2 because that is the second leg of the Copa de Brazil final. And Blue Boy, you were saying Faroe Islands football is better than MLS football. Now you have the biases, my friend. I know, it's all good, and I think you're probably kidding, but that would be very incorrect. Palmeiras and Gremio, it's the Copa do Brazil second leg of the final. It is not listed as FS2, which is kind of weird, because they've been carrying that tournament a lot.
Yeah.
Keep an eye to see if that pops up on FS2, because that would be really dumb to carry the final or carry the tournament all the way up to the final and not carry the second leg. Maybe they have college basketball things, but I'm not getting Fox Soccer Plus for that game. Sorry. I'd like to see it. Man, that's a mess.
Not currently listed as something that FS2 would be airing.
That's a mess. That's not good. Argentine games on Sunday. You have Gimnasia hosting Defensa at 5:20. Defensa should be fine there. You have Vélez hosting Boca at 7:30. That should be a fun one. Boca, we'll see if they can bounce back after their almost humiliating result against Claypole from the midweek, again, Copa Argentina. And is Pumas and Cruz Azul striking your fancy in Mexico at 10 o'clock on Sunday?
Probably, because it will give me something in the room as I'm preparing notes for Monday's shows.
Okay, well, there you go. Ricky asked about Paramount Plus. They do not have the Brazilian league because the new domestic competition hasn't started yet. These are state leagues, which are not the national league. They have the National League. That'll start, I think, in May. So Paramount Plus and their coverage of Brazil will pick up there. Their coverage of Argentina will pick up in the next league as well, which I think is actually going to be July. There was a little bit of confusion about that. Paramount Plus won't have those leagues for a little while. They're picking up the next competitions. Argentina had already started with the Copa de la Liga. Brazil was just finishing their Serie A season. So they'll pick up the next seasons. So no, they won't have those just yet. And there's a lot of conversation, speaking of South America, that the upcoming qualifiers here in a few weeks are not going to happen because European clubs do not want to release players. And they're going to try to find ways not to. And there is an out with quarantine situations that they're going to try to implement, to the point that CONMEBOL is saying, well, this is stupid. Why are we going to do these games if we can't have our best players come back? Can we push them back? But then there's that whole thing called the calendar that makes it a little bit difficult to push them back, because I don't think they're going to have time to play all the games that are scheduled. Then what? And I don't think they have an answer to that yet. That's where things stand coming up in CONMEBOL. It's a problem.
And yes, it is. It is a mess. You were talking about Cruz Azul and Pumas. I mean, we had Cruz Azul lost their first 2 matches of the year, and everybody's like, "Oh, Cruz Azul!" They've won every one since, and they're at the top of the table. So I think they're okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's your Conca Uno.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's your Conca Uno for the show.
You crack me up sometimes because just the non sequiturs are amazing at times.
Non sequitur down here.
They're very confusing.
Did you want to? Jarrett's back. Did you want to make fun of Neil Lennon again?
I mean, the moment's kind of lost.
Jesus,
they're on ESPN Plus, Jarrett, and they're going to Dundee United. So I said you could watch them try to set the game back another 20, 30 years. And I think I made a crack about something else with Neil Lennon and hearkening back to the old days where you could pass it back to the goalkeeper and they could pick it up. And Neil Lennon was stuck in the early 90s with that.
I mean, he probably is.
Yeah, I don't think it was maybe inaccurate. It was maybe a little mean, but he kind of deserved it.
Oh, man. By the way, there was a report that Jesse Marsch is probably not going to get that job, so everyone can take a deep breath and relax there.
Would have been a good call for Celtic to do.
Yeah, wouldn't have been a great call for Jesse Marsch, in my opinion, but this guy, I think there are better places, more. There are more stable places he can go.
Probably yes. Probably yes. Not 100% yes, but probably yes.
Yeah. Oh, and Cameron Harper is heading to Red Bulls, New York. Red Bulls.
Didn't that already happen?
Oh, they made it official?
Yeah, made it official.
I know it was talked about. I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen that it was official, but I had seen it was all but official.
Yeah.
So, good for him. He only got one game with the first team, really, where he started, and it was a terrible experience because the weather was crap. That was when the entire team was in quarantine for going to Dubai. So had a couple of moments in that game, but we'll see what he does. I want to see more from him. So good on him. At least he'll get a chance at Red Bulls one way or another.
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, if he wasn't getting time, it's a whole lot better to actually go somewhere and get time. Is it a permanent deal or is it a loan, John?
Efforting.
I think it's a permanent deal, which is great for Celtic because they got him. They scouted and signed him, so anything they get from him is going to go bank. So
I need a sledgehammer sounder when John is pounding on the keyboard.
I can make fun of his keyboard only partially because I have a giant mechanical keyboard I use for work that I can't wait to take back into the office because it sounds
When's that gonna happen?
like
2
somebody. It sounds like somebody in steel cleats, like walking over a metal beam.
Nice. 3-year MLS contract with an option for an additional year.
So it's a permanent deal. That's the point.
Yeah.
Like the contract isn't the transfer. It's a transfer.
Yeah.
Right?
Good for him.
It's a transfer.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep. Completed the transfer.
Okay. Loans and
I think he's talented. And by all accounts, he was tearing it up with Celtic's second team. Which,
right.
I mean, however you want to phrase that, do you? But I mean, he was lighting it up with their second team, and they really liked him. It sounded like, but the incompetence won out in Glasgow.
All right, so here's your odds, Jarrett, for your new manager at Celtic.
Yippee! Where are they now?
I did not come here to do this. I came here to see if we were still talking about Blaise Matuidi in Miami. But okay, whatever.
They're going to have to trade somebody. I would be calling if I needed a forward like Julian Carranza.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead, John.
John Kennedy's even money. Eddie Howe at 8-1. Enzo Maresca, and this is from Bet Victor. Enzo Maresca is at 12-1. Steve Clark at 16. Bunch of folks at 20-1. Lampard, Roberto Martinez, Paul Lambert, Martin O'Neill, Roy Keane has dropped to 16-1. Rafa's at 25. Sean Dyche is at 33. Michael O'Neill at Stoke is at 25. And then you've got folks at 33 and above. Thierry Henry's at 33-1. Jesse Marsch at Bet Victor is 33-1. Chris Coleman's the same. Malky Mackay is at 33-1.
Malky Mackay gets mentioned with every opening with Celtic. It's just It's just what happens.
Ranieri's at 33-1 at BetVictor. So is Wayne Rooney at other places. Louis Van Hall at BetVictor's at 33-1. And then, and AVB is at 33-1 as well. So there you go.
People are just pulling names out of hats at this point. I respect it. That's what they're doing.
Basically, that's where things stand. Birthdays today. Didn't get a chance to, again, do the show prep because of power situations. Thanks, Georgia Power. Birthdays. The most valuable player, according to Transfermarkt, who is currently playing, whose birthday is today, is Harry Maguire. He's got a very nasty birthday present waiting for him on Sunday against Manchester City. Fred also has a very nasty birthday present waiting for him on Sunday. It is also his birthday. 2 Manchester United birthdays today. The most valuable player from Major League Soccer whose birthday it is today is Diego Rossi. He is now 23. Will Diego Rossi be celebrating his next birthday as a member of LAFC, Jarrett?
He might be, and if he does, I think that's a screw up by LAFC.
I think so.
I think they need to sell him, and I think you can sell him and make a very nice penny off of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I love you, LAFC, for what you have done because you make things fun, even if you don't necessarily love defense. But you're still in MLS, and you should still be looking to profit off of this and reinvest the money by doing it again. Mm-hmm. Go get somebody else like him. Mm-hmm. But if you just sit on him, I swear to God, if you lose him on a free, LAFC, I swear.
I don't think they will.
Because
I
imagine he wants to go to Europe like a lot of these guys do. Everyone has that dream. Please don't lose him on a free.
I don't know what's going on with this. This is one of the weirdest ones that I've seen in MLS in a while. Reportedly, the offers were pretty good, and now they're different because of COVID, and that still shouldn't make you let him walk. I don't know. I'm baffled. A couple other birthdays today in the football world. Rogelio Funes Mori of Monterrey. He is 30 today. Will we see him in MLS at any point in his career? John?
If it is, I think it's to one of the teams in Los Angeles, and it would probably be at the end of his current contract. So I would say next after the end of this contract, I think that MLS chases him, but my gut says he stays in Liga MX.
I think he ends up in Texas. He's a Texas guy.
That was the other. I was thinking Houston, but I was reserving it just because of where things are with Tab Ramos.
The Funes Moris were part of the Sueño MLS project. Austin.
There you go.
I think he ends up in Austin in a year or two. That'd be a good signing. Right now, it'd be a good signing if you could get him right now. But if you get him in a year, it's a really good signing. I would do it.
Yep.
Danny Drinkwater is 31 today. Where is he these days? They finally got rid of him?
Yeah, they finally did.
Kasimpasa?
Yes, the loan. Yes, that's correct.
He is out at Kasimpasa.
Yeah.
I mean,
hopefully he's doing better at Kasimpasa than Mesut Ozil's doing at Fenerbahce.
I mean, and of course, because Rogelio Funes Mori's birthday is today, his twin, Ramiro, is also 30 today. He is at Villarreal. I think that is it. That's it for the major ones. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of footballers who are celebrating birthdays today, but those are the major ones in our world here. Christian McCoon, Inter Miami. There's another one for you. 21 years old. He is not listed as a designated player, and I don't think there was shenanigans in the signing of Christian McCoon. But if there were shenanigans on one signing, maybe you need to look at them all, right, MLS?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking.
Maybe that's what you're.
Has anybody looked at this and looked at LA and looked at the Galaxy and gone, let's talk about Christian Pavone while we got this page open?
Why not? I mean, if everybody's looking at Miami, just go get it done with Pavone and pull some shenanigans. I mean, why not? I don't think they're going to have to pull shenanigans to get Pavone because after the the fire extinguisher was brought out by Pavone's father, figuratively, not literally, on television in Argentina, where he trashed Boca to no end. I think they'll be ready to let him go for some reasonable check, and I think the Galaxy will get this done. But he's not going to play anytime soon because he had ankle surgery. He's going to be out at least until April, I believe. So there's no rush. We'll see if they get it done. Tofka with a question, and I guess this is another name that maybe could have come up for Celtic, since Celtic will be a high-profile club in the managerial carousel. Claudio Ranieri. Tofka says, why has no MLS team made a push for Ranieri? I don't think his style of play suits where MLS is going, but I think it could work at Celtic. Jarrett, why don't you start the Ranieri to Glasgow train?
Because I'm too busy. I'm too busy trying to steal a certain head coach by the name of Jim Curtin and infuriating all of the people in Philadelphia.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I mean,
infuriated.
It's not going to happen. Calm down.
I don't think it's going to happen yet. I think it's a little too early for Jim Curtin to make the jump, but Jim Curtin will manage in Europe.
It's too early until he takes the U.S. national team job in a couple of years.
Jim Curtin will manage in Europe before he takes the U.S. men's national team job. He will. An update on South America. Talks are continuing over the qualifiers this month. CONMEBOL issued a tweet statement about it. A working session of FIFA, CONMEBOL, and member associations was held about the March qualifiers. FIFA pledged to continue looking for a solution to the impasse that has arisen because South American players who play in European leagues are not going to be released, or they're going to fight the releases. Tomorrow, a virtual meeting is scheduled between Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, and the CONMEBOL Council. That was just posted a few minutes ago. I don't see how they get them done, but they're already behind schedule. The Copa America is going to be in June. That takes away other dates that you could have used for World Cup qualifiers. I don't know how you get it done. And I also completely understand the European clubs' situation here, and MLS clubs would be in this as well. Any club that has a South American player, because we saw players looking at you, Uruguay, and your Asado. We saw South American players come back with a lot of positive tests, and it affected the clubs who pay their salaries. And right now, you can't afford that. So I get it. I get the push against it. But then on the CONMEBOL side, the way the calendar is currently drawn, you are 4 games in to an 18-game campaign. Match day 5 and 6 are set for March 25th and March 30th. You've got 2 June dates that you are squeezing in before Copa America, June 3rd and June 8th. You've got September 2nd and 7th. You've got October 7th and 12th. You've got November 11th and 16th. That gets you to match day 14. You've got January 27th and February 1st of 22. You've got March 24th and 29th right now. That is the last match day. If you take 2 match days out and you throw them at the back end, you're going into June of 22, which I think is when they want to have the continental playoffs. You don't have weeks unless you're going to do what CONCACAF and I think UEFA are doing, where you're going to squeeze in 3 match days in some of these in September and October. And that's it. And that's that's crazy that others are already doing it. CONMEBOL would have to do that because you can't back up for March 29th of next year. You're stuck. And that's where everything is with the international game right now. Football is stuck. Soccer is stuck. Ugh.
Quick note from our friends at World Soccer Talk in the last 15 minutes. ESPN Plus's rights to Serie A end this season after a round of negotiations with top broadcasters. The process is now entering a second round of bidding with a Wednesday. Source tells World Soccer Talk ESPN Plus is expected to lose Serie A to Paramount Plus, but it's still wide open.
Paramount Plus getting aggressive. They go grab that. That's another one to add to it, and they're going to, it's not going to hurt ESPN Plus's overall subscription base, but it's a dent and it's going to help Paramount Plus. I think it's going to attract some more people that maybe Brazil and Argentina and CONCACAF and Champions League and Europa League hadn't already attracted. Makes it even stronger. So they're throwing the cash around. CBS is throwing cash around. They're betting on soccer. That's really cool. Now let's see how they continue to present it, because so far so good. They've done a great job thus far, and let's see if they continue to do it.
Yeah, and they're adding the documentaries and the longer form programming in addition to the games and all the wraparound coverage and all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool to see that they're making these kinds of investments both in a financial and a physical sense. And let's just see where the presentation continues as they continue to grow.
All right, final questions. If you are listening elsewhere, if you're on Twitch with us, please fire them off. Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Pretty much anything's fair game. Is Jarrett still hanging out with us?
Yes.
Can we yell at Jarrett in questions?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. If you have questions about his article at soccerdownhere.net about the Atlanta-San Jose series that is always drunk and insane, you can ask those. You can ask about Celtic. You can ask about whatever you want. We're going to go for another few minutes, and we'll take your questions. Jarrett, how do you feel about Jason Nix saying you think Lampard is looking for something bigger or better, or would he take the Celtic job?
I think the Celtic job would actually be a good fit for him the more I've thought about it, because they just need somebody who's stable and who might actually play a game that, resembles something from the last 10 years. And
he was in the last 10 years at least, yes.
It's not perfect, but it's something in the last 10 years, and I don't know what's going to happen with Rangers long term in terms of Steven Gerrard, but I think it wouldn't be the worst gig that Lampard could take. I think he'll do something else, though, personally, but that's okay.
If he was announced, would you be okay with it?
I wouldn't be mad. Yeah, I'd be okay with it.
You'd be okay with it?
I'd be okay. Let me see what you can do up close in a league where you are going to be one of the top two teams.
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot of expectations, and some of them you might think are unfair. But let me see what you do with them. Because you just played in a place where expectations are already unfair, or managed in a place where expectations are already unfair. And you underachieved. So if that happened, cool. I'm good with that.
Sean Vergara says, Big Sam to Celtic? Question mark?
Oh.
Not going to dignify this with a response.
That's probably the right thing to say.
Neil Lennon thinks that Big Sam is a little bit too regressive.
Yes. Neil Lennon's like, dude, even I wouldn't go there. J-Dub for John, what about Faroe Islands players celebrating birthdays? What you got? Since you're a Faroe Islands snob now as well.
Apparently, I will check the Faroe League and see if there are any birthdays and see if there are any before the end of the show.
Should have already known. Commando, yes, CBS has the NWSL broadcast rights as well. So they've got right now NWSL, Champions League, Europa League, some aspects of the Women's Champions League in Europe, although the way they do the rights, it's a little bit different, but they're grabbing some. They've got CONCACAF, World Cup qualifiers outside of the United States and Mexico. They've got, and that's for the octagonal, that's for the final round. So this round that starts in March, I don't think they'll have any of it unless they grab some of it as they go. They've got the CONCACAF Nations League, the semifinals, and the final coming up in June. They've got the English language rights to the Brazilian domestic national league, their Brasileirão, the Serie A. They've also got the English language rights to the Argentine league, everything with the Liga Profissional de Futebol in Argentina. Brazil will start in May, I believe, and Argentina will start in July. That's what they have now. They are rumored to be getting Serie A in Italy, but the bidding is still going, and right now ESPN Plus has that, but it ends at the end of the season. So CBS and Paramount Plus could be grabbing that. Turner, has there been any update on the protocols for USL call-ups to MLS? And do you think making it easier for players to go back and forth could lead to less postponements in MLS this season? Well, they've never had USL call-ups to MLS. The only thing they've had is emergency call-ups. Like a normal call-up they haven't had. They haven't said anything about the movement from MLS to USL, which is something they have to sort out. I don't think the ability to call players up would affect postponements. I don't think they'll have postponements in MLS this season. I think by the time you get underway, you're going to be in a position where I think you'll be able to play through. If a situation arises, then yeah, I do think the league will need to come up with a policy here. But you're also going to be in a situation, it won't be like last year with Colorado, where you ran out of time. You couldn't get the games played, and last year was figuring it all out on the fly. This year, if, say, Colorado has a game they miss, or even 2 games they miss, you can squeeze them into different points of the schedule. You'll be able to make it work. So I don't think they'll change the call-up situation. I do think MLS, and I've said this for years, they need to come up with something like the 2-way contract that the NBA has, where you are allowed to sign a USL deal and play a limited number of games in MLS before you have to sign an MLS deal. I think they need an in-between step that way. And I understand why they don't. They don't want teams, as we were seeing Miami, try to get around the salary cap rules. They don't want teams to stash guys in USL and then use them in MLS, but then be on USL deals, be outside of the cap. I get that. NBA has a cap too. So look at what they do with the 2-way contracts. I can't remember what the limit is for them and how many games they can play on it before they have to sign a full contract. But find your numbers and make that work. But that's not pandemic related. That's just, in my opinion, something they need to do for player development. Kefsey says you skipped a question, or you skipped a jersey size, John. What are you doing to Kefsey?
Oh, did I?
Yes.
Oh, let's see. Kefsey is wondering why. Where is it? What do we have to do to get Adidas to make kit sizes for our athletes of extraordinary size? Failing to put linemen in kits they want is a miss.
Yeah, I mean, the authentic ones, I understand. Size it as you would do it authentic, like team issued, and normally these guys are rather slim, so they're going to fit rather slim. And you want them to fit slim because you don't want people to grab the jersey if somebody's running away from them. So I get it. The replicas, we can size
absolutely.
them normal sizes. I would like to see Adidas do that. Please, could you do that, por favor?
Mm-hmm. As opposed to like the Puma kits that are painted on?
Yeah, the replica Puma kits are painted on. Like the authentic ones that they're playing in, yeah, paint them on. Paint them on so somebody can't grab you. That's fine. But the ones that, like, you know, those of us who are not playing are wearing, yeah, you can size them like normal shirts, please.
Yep. It makes me miss the late 90s and early 2000s where you could house a family inside one of those large shirts.
You could, yep. And then people would grab them and then they'd, like, tear away. Then you have to have, like, the tear away jerseys like they had in American football there for a while. And that just gets weird and stupid.
Emilio Corsi wants to know if there's any word on Fox Sports South coverage this year.
I mean, they have the rights. They bought the contract, and they bought it under previous ownership, and now that's changed. So they have the contract. The owners of Fox Sports South and Fox Sports Southeast, which will soon be Bally's Sports South or Bally South or Bally Southeast, I'm not sure the naming exactly.
Right.
They have to negotiate more deals for coverage, and they have not really shown much of a willingness to do this. Now, the good thing from an MLS perspective is MLS will be starting after baseball right now, and it was one thing when they screwed over Atlanta United fans. It was another when they screwed over Hawks fans. It's another one now where they're not getting the coverage out there for Braves fans, who will be very loud. And the only concern, Jarrett, maybe you can speak to this more than I can, is that maybe the Braves fan base is more old school with their cable televisions that would have this stuff, as opposed to Hawks and Atlanta United fans who would be going to more of the YouTube TVs and Hulus and such.
Maybe, but I mean, even then, if Bally / Fox / whatever it doesn't get the channels back on YouTube and Hulu and Sling and all that jazz, then what does it matter? It's such a dumb look, and it feels wildly unnecessary that y'all don't have something in place for this. Yeah, Braves fans are going to be the ones it feels like they all still live like 30 years ago, where, man, we got to get ready for baseball season. Like, cool. Most baseball fans probably aren't going to stream them. You can work around stuff with MLB TV, but MLB TV still has that damn blackout restriction where you can't watch it in your area. That's why VPNs were created. And you know why people are going to VPNs and doing all this crazy stuff? Because you idiots have everything on a blackout restriction and have not figured out how to make things accessible. People will pay $10 a month probably for access to Fox Sports South and Sports South. Hell, probably Turner South from back in the day. I mean, people will pay. We're already paying everything a la carte anyway.
If you give me a channel,
that's a la carte.
If you give me a channel with Wolfman and Donna commercials nonstop, I'll pay for it.
Ooh. Hey.
Only if you ask for the Wolfman.
I will.
And it has to show old Atlanta Knights games, too.
Yes, I'm fine with that. You can show Atlanta Attack games as well if you want to.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I'm with
but
it.
I mean, the fact that we're still... Go ahead.
No, it was Dr. Evil was just chiming in.
He's hip.
Okay. That's all I want at this point is, like, give me something to, like, just grow up and get into the 21st damn century and give us a streaming option, for God's sakes. It's comical.
Yes.
Yes.
I 100% agree.
To answer questions on the floor.
Actually, John, you act like when I say a couple questions that the Twitch pitch is done, you kind of forget how verbose the Twitch pitch is. They have a lot of questions.
Right, but no, the one question for me was Faroe Islands birthdays today.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Please tell
Rögvi
us.
Jakobsen, the all-time top... Yes, Rögvi Jakobsen, the all-time top scorer for the Faroe Islands national football team, turns 42 today.
Happy birthday.
And news out of Borussia Dortmund, Jadon Sancho, Rafael Guerrero, and Gio Reyna will not be traveling with the squad to Munich.
All right. Colonel wants to talk turmeric because y'all's team, Swansea City, is signing deals with turmeric companies now.
Yeah, on the front of the kit.
Wow.
Yay?
Hey,
check clears.
Yeah, exactly. If this go around, if the check clears, go for it.
Turmeric's fine. It's not a bad thing. So okay, cool.
Nope, I take it every day.
Tommy said,
"What? You use turmeric every day? Is that what I'm getting at this?"
People take turmeric pills, and I guess John does.
Yeah.
No, I was wondering if he used it as a spice.
No, he doesn't use it as a spice. We know better than that.
Okay. Sorry, I was confused for a minute.
The normal thing is you would use turmeric in cooking and actually use it in the food element, but John just takes a pill for that. He doesn't take salt pills, but he takes turmeric pills.
Yeah, I take turmeric pills.
Yeah.
Scared me for a minute there.
I know. Tommy says, where do y'all see BN Sports during this round of negotiations? In terms of Italy, nowhere. In general, BN has to hold on to La Liga. If they lose La Liga, they're in a really bad way in this country, because I don't know if they're going to be able to gain anything else. And that's the last big one that's out there. And there's even talk that ESPN Plus might go hard after that. There could be some kind of an out in the deal. And if ESPN Plus loses Serie A, I think then they immediately turn to say, well, how can we get Spain? Yes, cut a check. Uh-huh. So it could get a little weird for BN. Ricky wants to know if you have an Eric Remedi San Jose kit yet, Jarrett.
No, I have the only San Jose kit I have is the one, the recycled one from 2 years ago.
Oh, which the parlay.
It was the parlay kit. And the only reason I have that is because in our private discussions one night watching San Jose, I told all three of them, including Nick, that if San Jose came back and won this game, that I would buy the parlay kit because they still had one. They were one of the only teams that still had parlay kits that you could buy. And sure enough, they came back and won. So I bought a parlay kit. That's the only reason I own one.
Because
it is kind of weird to own a kit of another team in MLS other than Atlanta.
Yeah. You love San Jose, and we know it.
It is true.
Slow down, John. We're about to leave. We're using you as an excuse.
That's all right.
Jarrett got on this train, and then I fell in love with it.
Jarrett loves San Jose more than anything else, probably except for Atlanta. John's got an interview, which means it's time to go. Thanks for hanging out with us late. Thank you, Georgia Power, for getting my power back on. I wish it had not gone out this morning. But we will have a watch-along tomorrow morning. Check your local listings for what time we start. I think it's going to be 9:30 along with one of the Bundesliga matches. So that is the plan at the moment. We will be back for that. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.